I love reading books.
Me too.
I don't want to go out tonight.
Me neither.
I'm tired today.
I'm tired today. Me too.
Welcome to a new deep dive. Today, we're taking a really quite fascinating look behind the scenes. We're digging into what goes into creating highly detailed educational content.
Mm-hmm.
Our source material today is actually a prompt for an English language learning podcast. Now, at first glance, you might think, okay, it looks pretty straightforward. Just some bullet points about, as a simple grammar concept.
Right. Seems simple enough.
But as we start to unpack it, I think you'll see it's actually this meticulously crafted blueprint for effective learning, really immersive learning. It's way more than just a set of instructions.
Yeah, and I think the ingenious part here is exactly that. It's the sheer amount of thought, almost like architectural thought, that goes into structuring content for learners.
Architectural, yeah, like that.
Especially when the goal is something truly immersive, and really effective, something that actually sticks.
Right.
This isn't just about what to teach. It's meticulously planning how it's delivered.
The how is key.
And maybe the most crucial bit, for how long? How long that delivery needs to last to really ensure mastery. It's like a little mini masterclass in teaching strategy baked right into the prompt.
Absolutely. So our mission today, essentially, is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from this prompt. What does it really tell us about instructional design, at a fundamental level?
Mm-hmm.
What insights can we pull out about the learning process itself, particularly for language learning? And maybe the big question, how can a concept that seems so simple on the surface be taught so thoroughly? Not just explained, but taught over what turns out to be a very, very long time.
Yeah, that duration piece is definitely something we need to dig into.
Okay, so let's jump in. Let's see what this Convo Craft English podcast blueprint truly reveals. So where does this blueprint actually start? How does it begin crafting these real English conversations it talks about?
Well, it starts, interestingly, I think, with defining its own identity, its scope. It kind of lays out its core principles before you even get to the grammar lesson itself. We're looking at a podcast specifically called Convo Craft English Podcast. And the prompt, it explicitly defines its core identity. It says it's your place to practice real English conversations.
Right, real English conversations. That phrase alone, it immediately sets a certain tone, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests, a strong emphasis on practical, usable language, getting away from just abstract rules and focusing on actual spoken interaction.
Like how people actually talk.
Exactly. It seems to be about building fluency in a natural setting. Or, well, maybe a simulated natural setting, given it's audio only.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But the crucial element that jumps out, I think, is that focus on real conversations. It implies moving away from, say, just rote memorization or simple drills.
Which often don't translate well.
Right. They can leave learners knowing the rules but still feeling unable to actually use them in a real conversation. So the aim here isn't just for learners to, understand the grammar conceptually. It's for them to use it spontaneously, appropriately in, dynamic exchanges.
Okay, so it shifts the whole focus from just listening and absorbing.
Exactly. From passive reception, just listening, maybe nodding along, to active production. And that active engagement where you're actually forming the words yourself, that's really fundamental for true language acquisition. It helps build those pathways for spontaneous speech.
And the specific focus for this particular deep dive, it mentions episode 9 of Convo Craft English podcast. It's all about mastering the correct usage of two seemingly very simple phrases, me too, and me neither.
Right.
Now, that immediately flags up a really precise, actionable learning objective. It's not a huge grammar topic like, the past perfect or articles.
No, it's very targeted.
Very specific. Two high-frequency conversational tools. Why do you think these two specific phrases, me too and me neither, get chosen for this kind of super focused, in-depth treatment? They seem so basic. Couldn't you just explain them in 5 minutes?
Well, they do seem basic on the surface, but that kind of raises an important question, doesn't it? Why are they such a persistent point of confusion for English learners? from all sorts of language backgrounds, actually.
Okay, so it's a common sticking point.
It really is. The subtlety, I think, lies in that positive versus negative agreement. Learners often just default to me too for everything, even in negative situations, like saying, I don't like coffee. And the learner responds, me too.
Right. Which is wrong.
Exactly. It's grammatically incorrect, and it's a really deeply ingrained error for many people. So dedicating an entire extensive deep dive to just these two phrases, that means recognizing a frequent kind of sticky pitfall and really committing to cementing the correct usage.
Yeah.
It moves beyond just abstract rules to tackle a very common, very tangible conversational stumbling block. One that can make a learner sound unnatural or even, be misunderstood.
So it's not really about simplicity, it's about precision.
Exactly. Precision and addressing a genuine real-world communication need.
That makes a lot more sense. You're targeting a specific pain point that maybe gets glossed over sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And who is this really detailed content actually designed for? The prompt is clear.
Yeah.
It's designed for learners of English.
Right. The target audience.
Which straight away implies, a need for clarity, for a supportive patient learning environment, and for content that recognizes the cognitive load involved when you're learning a new language.
Definitely.
It's clearly not for native speakers tweaking nuances. It's for someone building that foundational fluency. But what is it specifically about their challenges, especially in an audio-only format, that makes clarity and patience just so essential here? What are some of those cognitive load things that may not be obvious if you haven't, say, taught a language?
Well, understanding that target audience, the learner, it really dictates everything about how the content is delivered. For language learners, repetition is absolutely key. Clarity is paramount. And a non-intimidating atmosphere, that really encourages participation.
Right. Makes them feel safer to try.
Exactly. And think about cognitive load like your computer's RAM.
Okay.
When you're learning a new language, especially just by listening, you're running multiple demanding processes at the same time. You're decoding unfamiliar sounds, trying to recall new vocabulary, applying grammar rules you just learned, and trying to map all of that onto meaning.
That's a lot to juggle.
It is. And without visual cues, like seeing someone's face or instant feedback, an audio-only format can actually amplify that load. So a slower, patient pace isn't just about being nice or gentle. No, it's a deliberate strategy to reduce that cognitive load. It gives your brain enough processing power to actually assimilate the new information without just, freezing up or getting overwhelmed.
But it helps the connections form properly.
Precisely. It allows those neural connections to form more robustly. And it fosters that relaxed atmosphere where making mistakes isn't just, okay, it's expected. It's part of the journey. It's a very conscious choice to ensure effective processing, not just passive exposure.
But then, okay, we hit this really kind of mind-blowing detail in the prompt. It says, the podcast must be at least 5 hours long in total duration.
Yeah, that one jumps out.
5 hours. For me, too. And me neither. What was your immediate reaction when you saw that? My first thought was, honestly, how on earth do you stretch that concept for 5 hours without it becoming incredibly, unbelievably tedious?
Well, I think the brilliance, maybe, or at least the core pedagogical idea, lies exactly in that extraordinary length. A 5-hour duration for just one grammatical concept. It immediately tells you the true intent here isn't a quick explanation.
No quick fix.
Definitely not. It signals an emphasis on intensive, immersive practice and on overlearning.
Overlearning. Okay, tell me more about that.
It means going beyond just understanding it the first time. It's practicing it so much that it becomes automatic. This isn't your typical 10-minute YouTube explainer or even like a standard 30-minute classroom lesson.
Yeah.
This transforms the lesson from just a brief tutorial into a really comprehensive mastery program. It's pushing past that initial comprehension stage to the point where using me too or me neither correctly becomes completely automatic.
So it frees up your brain power for the rest of the conversation.
Exactly. It frees up that cognitive load for focusing on meaning, on connection, on the actual communication. That's a state you rarely achieve in traditional language classes, especially for these high-frequency, seemingly simple phrases. It's a deep commitment to automaticity, to ingrained recall, not just recognition.
That's a really interesting distinction. Okay, so what are the sort of profound implications of designing something that long? How does it fundamentally change the whole approach to delivering the content compared to, say, that 10-minute video we mentioned?
Well, you definitely can't just repeat the same definition and examples for 5 hours straight.
No kidding. I imagine if I tried to teach me too and me neither for 5 hours,
Right.
I'd run out of steam after like 20 minutes, maybe less.
Right.
How do they possibly keep it fresh and engaging for that entire duration?
Yeah, it's a valid concern, isn't it? But to actually fill 5 hours effectively on a single topic and keep the learner engaged, the content has to be incredibly diverse in how it's presented. Yet it needs to be absolutely unyielding on its core objective, mastering those two phrases.
Okay, so variety is key.
Huge. It implies a really deep understanding of attention spans, of learning plateaus. You can't just give them, say, 20 examples and then say, okay, practice on your own for the next 4.5 hours.
Right, that wouldn't work.
No, it requires cycling through different things. Explanations, sure, but also different kinds of drills, those mini quizzes mentioned, dialogues and context, role-playing exercises, maybe even storytelling segments, all designed to revisit the same core concept, but from slightly different angles.
So you're hitting it from all sides.
Pretty much. This ensures it's not just understood, but truly internalized, moving from that conscious, deliberate application of the rule to subconscious, automatic usage. And the sheer volume, that 5 hours, it also suggests that the learner probably isn't meant to listen to it all in one go. Ah, okay, like you dip in and out.
Exactly, you return to it repeatedly. That allows for distributed practice, spacing out the learning, which we know is far more effective for long-term retention than trying to cram it all in at once.
Okay, that makes sense. Spaced repetition built into the structure. So with that incredible 5-hour commitment sort of framing everything, the next big question is how? How do you actually sustain engagement and ensure learning over what is essentially a marathon session, even if broken up?
Right.
And this blueprint, it really offers, like you said, a masterclass in pedagogical style and active engagement strategies. The prompt is very specific. The podcast style should be friendly, teacher-like, and slow-paced.
Yep, those 3 descriptors.
Let's break those down. Why is a friendly tone so important, especially for language learners? And particularly in audio where you don't have, body language or a smiling face.
Stepping back a bit, this really speaks to the wider idea of creating an optimal learning environment. A friendly, teacher-like tone. That creates a sense of safety, a low-stress space.
Reduces anxiety. Massively. Learners are often really self-conscious about making mistakes, right? And a warm, encouraging voice, it can significantly reduce that anxiety. It makes the learner feel supported, like they have a helpful guide walking alongside them, rather than some strict examiner just waiting to pounce on errors.
Okay, so it builds psychological safety. And what about the slow-paced aspect? How does that specifically help with comprehension and, maybe more importantly, retention over 5 hours?
Well, as we touched on with cognitive load, the slow pace is absolutely critical. It directly reduces that mental strain. Imagine trying to follow every single word in a fast-paced conversation. In a language you're just learning, it's exhausting.
Yeah, your brain just gives up after a while.
Exactly. A slower pace provides that crucial mental space for the processing to actually happen, for the new information to be absorbed, assimilated, and even mentally practiced without feeling rushed or completely overwhelmed.
So it aids comprehension directly.
And by extension, it boosts retention because the brain actually has the time it needs to form stronger neural connections. It really does foster that relaxed atmosphere where mistakes are just, part of the process, normal, expected even.
So it's about building confidence and easing that mental burden.
Okay.
Well, beyond just the overall style, the prompt outlines some very specific strategies for active learning and reinforcement. Which makes sense, given the 5-hour length.
You need active strategies for that duration.
The first one seems straightforward, but it's powerful. Repeat important points several times. This feels like learning 101, right? Repetition. But what does this heavy emphasis on repetition, especially over 5 hours, really tell us? Is it just spaced repetition, or is it getting at that overlearning idea you mentioned?
I think it's definitely pushing into overlearning territory here. This is where the depth of the instructional design really comes through. Repetition is fundamental for memory, yes. We often call it spaced repetition or sometimes retrieval practice.
Right.
But for language acquisition, it's not just about understanding it the first time. It's about achieving fluency, that automaticity we talked about. When you first learn a new grammar structure, you have to consciously think about the rule, apply it deliberately.
Yeah, it's slow work.
It is. But to use it naturally, spontaneously, in the flow of a real conversation, you need to move beyond that conscious, often quite slow, calculation. And that requires repeated exposure and practice until the correct usage just becomes second nature, like a reflex, almost, rather than a conscious choice.
You used the analogy of riding a bike earlier.
Exactly. At first, you're thinking about every single pedal stroke, every tiny turn of the handlebars, but eventually it becomes automatic. You just do it. And that frees you up to think about where you're going, enjoy the scenery. That's precisely what they seem to be aiming for here with Me Too and Me Neither. Automatic conversational reflexes. Without that level of overlearning, the learner might understand the rule, yeah, but they'll still hesitate or make errors in a real conversation, especially when their cognitive resources are already stretched thin just trying to follow along.
It's about building that linguistic muscle memory.
Perfectly put. Linguistic muscle memory.
And speaking of muscle memory, the prompt puts a huge emphasis on listener participation. It explicitly says, encourage the listener to repeat after the host. And also, insert pauses for practice.
Yes, those active elements.
This immediately tells you, okay, this isn't meant to be passive listening. It's designed to be interactive.
Yeah.
What's the fundamental benefit of getting the listener to actually produce the language, even just repeating rather than only listening to explanations and examples?
This brings up a really important question. How do these specific instructions transform the listener from just being a passive recipient into an active participant? And the benefit is, well, it's profound. It's multifaceted. When a learner actively produces the language, even if it's just repeating, they're engaging multiple neural pathways. They're not just processing sounds passively anymore.
They're doing something.
They're doing something. They're forming the words with their own articulatory muscles, their tongue, their lips. They're engaging their memory for the correct pronunciation. They're actively connecting the sound to the meaning and the grammatical structure.
And what about those pauses? Insert pauses for practice. They seem quite deliberate.
Oh, they're incredibly deliberate and quite ingenious, actually. Those pauses are not just dead air. They are intentionally designed opportunities for the learner to try and formulate their own answer before they hear the correct one.
Ah, like a mini self-test.
Exactly. It simulates that real-time conversational pressure, having to think on your feet, but in a very controlled, low-stakes environment. It forces the learner to actively retrieve the information, apply the rule, rather than just passively recognizing it when they hear it.
Right. Retrieval practice again.
Yes. Active recall and that immediate feedback mechanism, hearing the correct answer right after you've tried it, builds that muscle memory for spoken English much more effectively. It really transforms the learning from just knowing a rule in your head to actually doing the language.
Makes it tangible.
Very tangible and immediate, which fosters genuine confidence over time.
That's a great way to frame it, doing versus just knowing. And there's another instruction, subtle maybe, but really important given the sheer length of this thing. Every 20 minutes, add a reminder. You are listening to Convo Craft English Podcast.
Little signpost.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there's a branding element there. But beyond just branding, what's the psychological effect of these regular check-ins during such a long audio program? How do they help manage, a learner's attention span over potentially 5 hours?
Well, beyond the branding, which is certainly part of it, these regular reminders serve several really vital psychological functions for the listener, especially in a super extended audio format like this.
Okay, like what?
Firstly, they really help with orientation and re-engagement. In a 5-hour audio program, it's incredibly easy for your attention to drift. Your mind wanders off.
Happens to me all the time in long meetings.
Exactly. So a consistent spaced reminder like this acts as a gentle reset. It pulls the listener back into the learning experience, reminds them of the context, the purpose. Ah, yes, I'm learning Me Too and Me Neither.
Okay, brings you back.
Secondly, it definitely helps in managing attention span over that huge duration. Knowing that a familiar marker, a little anchor point, is going to appear at regular intervals. That can create a sense of structure and predictability. It makes the vastness of the content feel a bit more manageable.
Like breaking a long journey into smaller legs.
Precisely. It reinforces the program's identity, sure, but it also helps prevent cognitive fatigue by providing these small, regular breaks in the content flow. Even if they're brief, they allow the brain to unconsciously recenter itself before diving back in.
It's like a linguistic waypoint, kind of keeping you on the right track through the fog.
That's a good analogy.
Okay, now let's get into the actual core lesson content itself. The prompt insists on having clear definitions for Me Too and me neither.
Right, the basics.
Me too is defined as used to agree with positive sentences, and me neither is used to agree with negative sentences. Now, on the surface, that seems incredibly simple, right? Two short definitions.
Seems straightforward.
But as you mentioned earlier, it's a really common point of confusion for learners. Why is it so critical to distinguish these two with such absolute precision, even though they seem like such basic phrases?
Well, I think the brilliance here lies in just how precise and concise those definitions are. While they seem simple, they cut directly to the core of a very, very common grammatical error, particularly for non-native speakers.
Okay.
Many learners, especially maybe if their native language doesn't have a direct equivalent for negative agreement, or if they're just used to adding a word like also or to for all kinds of agreement.
So just default to the positive form.
They often struggle with the concept of needing a different phrase, me neither, for negative statements. They might habitually say, like we discussed, I don't like coffee, me too, which just sounds wrong to a native speaker.
Yeah, it jars a bit.
It does. So by setting such a clear, unambiguous binary rule, positive sentences get me too, negative sentences get me neither. The podcast provides a universal framework, something that can be applied consistently every time.
No gray areas.
Exactly. It effectively cuts through any potential ambiguity and helps prevent that incorrect usage from becoming fossilized. It establishes a crystal clear cognitive rule that's hopefully easy to remember and apply consistently. It's all about building that foundational accuracy from the start.
Clarity and avoiding those common traps.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And the prompt doesn't just stop with clear definitions. It puts a huge emphasis on quantity and situational variety. It demands at least 20 different short dialogues and specifies that each phrase, meaning me too or me neither, be used more than 20 times in total across the whole podcast.
Yeah.
Now, given this thing is 5 hours long, at least 20 dialogues must actually mean dozens, maybe hundreds of unique dialogue instances.
Oh, absolutely. Easily.
And each phrase used way, way more than just 20 times. The sheer volume implied here is kind of staggering.
Yeah.
What does that tell us about the pedagogical thinking behind this? How does that massive exposure actually contribute to mastery?
Well, that sheer volume is designed to ensure extensive exposure and reinforcement. And that's absolutely vital for language acquisition, especially if the goal is that overlearning, that automaticity we keep coming back to.
Right.
It's simply not enough to hear a phrase just a few times. Learners need to encounter it repeatedly, again and again, in a multitude of different contexts for it to become truly embedded, not just in their passive understanding, but in their active vocabulary and grammar.
So it moves beyond just recognizing it.
Exactly. It goes beyond mere recognition where you understand it when someone else says it to true mastery, where the correct phrase just comes out automatically without conscious effort. It's the difference between knowing about me too and me neither conceptually and actually using them correctly and naturally in a spontaneous conversation.
Okay.
That incredibly high frequency of usage over 5 hours, it's designed to drive those phrases deep into long-term memory and really facilitate automatic retrieval so they can just be deployed effortlessly when needed in real-time communication. That's how you build genuine fluency, not just knowledge about the language.
And crucially, this huge volume is paired with a demand for diverse contexts. It says, alternate between everyday situations, food, hobbies, work, travel, school, weather, feelings, etc.
Yeah, the variety of situations.
Why is that so important? Why present these phrases in such a wide array of everyday scenarios? Wouldn't it be simpler for the learner if you just stuck to, say, 20 dialogues all about food preferences?
Well, stepping back again, this speaks directly to the goal of practical applicability and generalizability.
Generalizability, meaning they can use it anywhere.
Pretty much. Learners aren't just memorizing rules or isolated examples about food. They're seeing and hearing how me too and me neither function naturally across the whole spectrum of everyday life. This builds a really robust contextual understanding.
Okay.
If they only ever heard these phrases in dialogues about food, they might genuinely struggle to use them confidently when talking about their job or their feelings or travel plans.
They might subconsciously link the phrase only to food.
It's possible, but when they encounter a real-life situation, maybe talking about hobbies or the weather or how they're feeling, They will have already heard and practiced these phrases in very similar contexts within the podcast.
Yeah.
That contextual learning is absolutely critical for the transferability of knowledge.
Meaning they can actually use it in new situations they haven't practiced exactly.
Exactly. They can confidently apply what they've learned in new, unfamiliar situations. It helps them internalize that these phrases aren't restricted to specific topics. They're broadly applicable, versatile conversational tools. Plus, frankly, it keeps the content more interesting and relatable over that very long duration.
Yeah, you avoid the boredom factor too.
Yeah.
And the prompt gives us some immediate, very concrete examples that really bring this to life, don't they?
The examples are helpful.
For me too, agreeing with positive sentences, we get things like,
I love pizza. Me too. I'm feeling happy today. B, me too. I enjoy reading books. B, me too. I like traveling. B, me too. Simple, direct.
very clear.
And then for me neither, agreeing with negative sentences.
I don't like waiting in long lines. B, me neither.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch TV tonight.
Yeah.
B, me neither. I don't enjoy rainy days. B, me neither. I don't like waking up early. B, me neither. And notice, it's not just the diversity of topics, food, feelings, activities, preferences. It's how common these scenarios are. I mean, who hasn't had a conversation about pizza or waiting in lines or liking travel or hating rainy days?
They're universally relatable.
Exactly. This deliberate choice of very common low-stakes topics ensures learners aren't just memorizing grammar points in isolation. They're associating them directly with authentic, everyday communication needs, which surely makes the jump to using them in the real world much smoother.
Absolutely. They're immediately relatable, which, as you said, is crucial for engagement. This simple, direct presentation statement, correct agreement, is incredibly effective. It provides really clear models for the learner to mimic. It reinforces the rules without needing lots of abstract grammatical jargon.
That's straight to the point.
Straight to practical application. Embedding the phrases through repeated, contextually relevant exposure, it aligns perfectly with that goal of real English conversations.
Okay, so we have clear definitions, massive repetition, and varied relatable contexts. The next crucial piece is the variety of practice activities the prompt lays out.
Right, the how of the practice.
It outlines this progressive series. It seems to move from simple repetition towards more complex conversational scenarios. First up, we have guided repetition exercises. Say it with me. Me too. Me neither.
Basic parroting.
Right. But it notes this focuses on pronunciation and intonation, too. Not just getting the words right. Why is ensuring that natural spoken delivery so important? Isn't just understanding the grammar and saying the right words enough?
Well, getting the words right is obviously the essential first step. You have to have the right phrase. But for achieving those real English conversations, how you say it can be almost as important as what you say.
Okay, how so?
Pronunciation and intonation, the rhythm, the stress, the melody of the language, they convey a lot of meaning. They convey emotion naturalness. If a learner uses me too correctly, grammatically speaking, but says it with a really awkward or flat intonation, or puts the stress in the wrong place,
It still sounds off.
it can sound foreign, maybe unclear, or it might even convey the wrong feeling or nuance. These guided repetition exercises help learners develop what linguists call prosodic awareness, the music of the language.
Prosody.
It includes getting the right rhythm, stress patterns, pitch changes. This is often completely overlooked in traditional grammar classes, but it's absolutely integral to sounding natural and being easily understood by native speakers. It actually reduces the listening effort for the other person too.
Ah, interesting. So it helps both speaker and listener.
Definitely. It builds a really crucial layer of communicative competence beyond just grammar rules.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, then the activities progress. We get to mini quizzes. I like chocolate. What'd you say? Applause. Correct?
Me too.
Yeah, the little check-ins.
These seem like really clever ways to encourage that active recall we talked about. And immediate self-assessment, but without any real pressure or judgment, right?
Exactly. Low stakes.
How did these moments, specifically with that built-in pause, deepen the learning beyond just repeating things? Well, the really ingenious part there, I think, is the explicit instruction to include a pause. It's not accidental.
Right.
This isn't just a simple Q&A drill. That pause is a very deliberate design choice. It gives the learner that crucial moment to actively try and formulate their own answer before they hear the correct one.
Puts them on the spot gently.
Gently, yes. It simulates that real-time conversational pressure needing to respond appropriately, but in a safe, supportive environment. It transforms the quiz from just passive listening into active retrieval practice. And we know from cognitive science that retrieval practice is incredibly effective for solidifying memory.
Trying to pull it out yourself makes it stick better.
Much better than just hearing it again. The act of trying to recall and produce the answer strengthens those neural pathways far more effectively. And then the immediate feedback, correct? Me too, provides instant validation if they got it right, or immediate correction if they didn't, reinforcing the correct pathway. It's a fantastic, low-stakes way to practice thinking in real time and self-correcting, crucial for building conversational fluency.
Okay. And from those kinds of mini quizzes, the prompt pushes towards more complex scenarios. Things like extended dialogues with multiple speakers using me too and me neither, and even storytelling segments. For example, two friends talking about their day.
Right, moving beyond single exchanges.
These seem to move far beyond just isolated sentences. What's the benefit of showing these phrases embedded within a continuous narrative, something that actually mirrors the flow of a natural conversation?
Stepping back again, these kinds of activities are absolutely essential for developing true communicative competence, which is, the ability to use language effectively and appropriately in actual real-world situations.
Beyond just the grammar rules.
Way beyond. Real conversations, they don't happen in neat, isolated sentences, do they? They unfold. They flow within a broader context, often with multiple turns, multiple speakers, building on what came before.
Yeah, they're messy.
They can be. So by integrating me too and me neither into these longer dialogues and storytelling segments, the learner gets to experience the phrases as part of a continuous, meaningful narrative. They see how they fit into the sequence of terms, how they connect ideas, how they contribute to the overall meaning of a longer exchange.
It builds a more holistic picture.
Exactly. It builds that holistic understanding. But moving from the micro level, getting the phrase right, to the macro level, understanding its role in fluent conversation. It prepares them much better for the unpredictable ebb and flow of real interactions.
Seeing the forest, not just the individual trees. And the prompt even circles back to re-emphasize slow practice with intonation and pronunciation.
Reinforcing that aspect.
This repeated commitment, not just to what to say, but how to say it, really stands out for a long-form audio program. It signals a focus on really holistic mastery, doesn't it?
It really speaks to the comprehensive nature of the instructional design here. They clearly understand that good pronunciation and natural intonation aren't just like optional extras or mere embellishments.
They're core components.
They are integral to clear communication and achieving that natural-sounding speech. By reinforcing this aspect, they're ensuring learners develop not just grammatical accuracy, but also phonological competence, the ability to perceive and produce the sounds and rhythms of English correctly.
Which is vital for being understood.
Absolutely vital for real-world interactions, because even if your grammar is perfect, if your pronunciation is unclear or your intonation is very unnatural, people might struggle to understand you. Getting this right means the learner will be understood more easily and sound more natural, which, in turn, significantly boosts their confidence.
Okay. And then finally, we get to what feels like the culmination of all these practice activities. Longer role plays with variations, example, at a restaurant, on a trip, in school.
Yeah, putting it all together.
These sound like the ultimate test drive, the application phase for everything learned. What makes these role plays such a powerful tool in the learning process, especially for integrating phrases like me too and me neither?
I think the brilliance here is that these role plays are the ultimate application stage. They provide these simulated yet realistic real-world contexts. They allow learners to actively practice using me too and me neither in situations where they would genuinely encounter the need for them.
Like ordering food or talking about travel experiences.
Exactly. This is where the learning truly bridges the gap from theory, from the controlled practice exercises, to actual practical use. It's about building genuine confidence for real interactions down the line.
And the variation is important too. Restaurant, trip, school.
Yes, varying the scenarios, a restaurant, planning a trip, talking at school, further reinforces the adaptability and the broad usefulness of these seemingly simple phrases. It prepares the learner for a wider range of social and practical situations they might face. It's really the bridge from the structured learning environment to the messiness of the real world.
Lets them anticipate and practice.
Exactly. Practice conversational turns, practice responding appropriately in different dynamic scenarios, not just static sentences. It's invaluable for building that real usable fluency.
Taking the learning off the page or out of the headphones and into perceived reality. Okay. And then, to really make sure all this learning sticks, especially across that huge 5-hour duration, the blueprint includes dedicated sections for review and correction.
Crucial for consolidation.
It specifies after every 30 minutes, add a review recap, summarizing when to use me too versus me neither.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds brilliant for such a long format, doesn't it? Breaking it down into manageable chunks, preventing overload.
Definitely. Very smart design.
But why is that regular recap, that structured review, so vital for learning, especially when dealing with potentially complex information or even just a lot of information over such an extended period?
Yeah, it raises that important question again. Why is regular recap so vital? Especially over a long haul like this, it serves multiple critical functions, actually. Firstly, and most obviously, it consolidates the learning. It revisits and reinforces the core rules, positive versus negative agreement at spaced intervals, which, as we know, is a key principle for memory. It helps push that information from fragile short-term memory into more robust long-term memory.
That makes it stick.
This makes it stick better, yes. Secondly, it provides a clear mental reset, a designated breakpoint. This helps the listener process what they've just absorbed before they move on to the next chunk of practice or examples. In a really long audio program, this prevents that feeling of being constantly bombarded, of getting overwhelmed by a continuous, unending stream of information.
Like coming up for air.
Exactly. And thirdly, you could argue it's a form of built-in metacognition.
Metacognition. Thinking about thinking.
Yeah, essentially the podcast is actively guiding the learner on how to learn. It prompts them to reflect. Okay, what did I just learn? Do I understand the rule? Can I summarize it? Rather than just passively receiving the information. This structured review reinforces the main takeaway, allows the learner to quickly check their own understanding, and mentally prepares them for the next segment.
It's like checking your mental GPS periodically to make sure you're still heading in the right direction.
That's a perfect analogy for it.
And crucially, the blueprint doesn't just review the correct way. It includes common mistake corrections. It even provides that specific example we discussed. I don't like coffee. Wrong. Me too. Correct. Me neither.
Addressing the errors head on.
This shows incredible foresight, doesn't it? Anticipating where learners typically stumble and providing those direct, unambiguous corrections. This isn't just about showing the right way. It seems aimed at actively dislodging those incorrect habits.
Absolutely. It directly addresses that frequent, often deeply ingrained error of using me too for negative statements. By providing immediate, explicit clarification and, crucially, doing it repeatedly alongside all the positive examples, it helps prevent the entrenchment, or what linguists sometimes call fossilization, of that incorrect usage.
Fossilization sounds bad, like it gets stuck permanently.
It can be. In language learning, if errors aren't caught and corrected promptly and consistently, they can become incredibly difficult to unlearn later on, almost like a bad habit that's become automatic. So by explicitly highlighting a common mistake and immediately providing the correct alternative.
It cuts it off at the pass.
Exactly. The podcast proactively tackles a known challenge. It reinforces the precise nature of the negative agreement rule with me neither, making sure the learner understands not just the correct form, but also why the common incorrect form is wrong. This kind of explicit error correction, especially when combined with the sheer volume of correct practice, is an absolutely invaluable part of the learning process. It guides the learner away from those habitual errors before they become permanent fixtures. It's like targeted intervention to ensure accuracy.
Okay, so wrapping this up then, what does this deep dive into a fairly detailed podcast prompt actually mean for you, the listener? Whether you happen to be a language learner yourself, or maybe a content creator, an educator, or maybe just someone curious about how effective learning happens, it feels like this analysis reveals the incredible intentionality, the deep thought that goes into crafting truly effective educational content. It's clearly not just about dumping information.
No, far from it.
It's about meticulously designing an entire experience. An experience that actively fosters active learning, that demands consistent and varied practice, and aims for deep, internalized understanding. Even for something that seems as simple as me too and me neither, it really is a masterclass in pedagogical foresight, isn't it?
It really is, and it raises, I think, an important broader question about the future of learning, or maybe just effective learning design in general.
Oh yeah? What's that?
Well, if we can map out such a comprehensive, detailed, multi-hour learning experience for a single, quite nuanced linguistic point like this, just from a well-structured prompt, what are the wider implications for how we design educational materials across any subject.
Right, not just language.
Not just language, this level of structured, iterative instruction with its strong emphasis on immersion, active participation, targeted feedback, and that crucial spaced review. It's clearly a very powerful model. It seems to go far beyond just language learning. It really highlights the value of deep, sustained engagement over maybe more superficial, rapid-fire consumption of information. It's almost a testament to the idea that achieving true mastery often requires far more dedicated, deliberate, carefully structured practice than we might initially assume, even for the basics.
That's a really powerful takeaway. So whether you're maybe designing a presentation for work or trying to learn a new skill yourself, or even just trying to understand a complex topic really deeply, maybe consider the blueprint we've kind of dissected today.
Yeah, the core principles.
Those core principles.
Mhm.
Start with clear, concise definitions. Insist on varied and abundant practice.
Yeah.
Build in consistent reinforcement and regular review cycles. And adopt a deliberate, patient pace that truly respects the learner's cognitive journey.
The whole package.
And it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What other seemingly small details, maybe in instructional design or content creation, might hold the key to unlocking truly profound, lasting learning? Something to perhaps mull over until our next deep dive.